Mr. Carney. Thank you for taking our questions. Your critics are going to say that this is an elbows down approach, that you're backing down to Trump. What are you gaining by dropping these tariffs?
Mark Carney puts his elbows down, turtles up, surrenders unconditionally, and now trying his hardest to spin the entire thing. Welcome back to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. Mark Carney held a press conference today where he announced his unconditional surrender to the United States. Now, he's trying to spin this in a way that if I wasn't so invested, I would be laughing my head off, right? Like if I wasn't a Canadian and I heard and I was following along the history of this, where 1 minute the guy is talking about how Donald Trump is an existential threat and he's going to hold his feet to the fire, and they are intensely focused on, negotiations and all the rhetoric and all of the what turns out now to be complete fabrications that came out of the liberal side from the election forward. It's been a lot of tough talk. It's elbows up. It's we're going to be in a trade war. They're threatening our very way of life. To now, it's, well, we have the best deal in Canada in the whole wide world, and our numbers are spectacularly low compared to some countries, and we have to work with the United States in this new framework. There's no talk about how he's going to make trade partners with the EU and all. It is a total and complete unconditional surrender. I don't care how he's trying to spin it. Nothing that he's trying to spin isn't something that wasn't true the day Donald Trump enacted the very first tariffs. So the best you're hoping for me to understand is that it only took you 6 months to catch up to the rest of us?
Canada currently has the best trade deal with the United States. And while it's different from what we had before, it is still better than that of any other country. So as we work to address outstanding trade issues with the United States, it's important, it's vital. We do everything we can to preserve this unique advantage for Canadian workers, Canadian businesses. And doing so will require both building on a soon-to-be revised CUSMA, our free trade agreement with the U.S. and Mexico, as well as developing a new form of trade and security partnership with the United States. In this context, and consistent with Canada's commitment to CUSMA, I'm announcing today that the Canadian government will now match the United States by removing all of Canada's tariffs on U.S. goods specifically covered under CUSMA.
There is so many things going on in that one particular statement that they are trying to talk about. They want to gloss over the fact that Mark Carney and the Liberals have been running up and down the country talking about existential threat, talking about Never 51 and all of these other things that they were going on and on and on about trade war. And here now we can see that it's not a trade war anymore. Now it's, well, we have the best deal in the world, so Canada should be happy with that. And we got to do whatever we can to preserve that deal. Unfortunately for Mark Carney, we had that deal when Biden was still the president. We had that deal on January 20th when Trump was inaugurated. We had the best trade deal with the United States. So nothing has changed then, is what you're saying. That no matter what you told the voting population, no matter what you told Canadians, absolutely nothing has altered. Well, I shouldn't say that, I guess. There are some things that have altered. We have lost an entire season to develop our own internal economy. We have lost an entire season to get jobs and shovels in the ground. All the while, all the guys and all the people that are working those jobs down in southern Ontario, well, they're being laid off left, right, and center. So we are going to be spending a lot of borrowed money to give them supports and retraining and all the things that come along with that in this liberal idea. And we've decided to put together a new bureaucracy. So I guess we have spent a lot of money on nothing. We've thrown away a lot of money and made the government larger. Mark Carney has run around the world realizing that nobody is interested in his approach to anything. The EU shut the door in his face. Donald Trump shut the door in his face. Southern Asia shut the door in his face. And so we can see that in truth, Mark Carney was a horrible decision for Canadians. What is amazing about this press conference is a couple of the reporters actually pushed back a little bit. And Mark Carney wasn't happy with that. You could tell that he was uncomfortable with his, bought and paid for with Canadian tax dollars press corporation saying to him what is obvious to everyone who's not in the room. Mark Carney has completely changed his position. He has surrendered 100%.
Pretty much every stop during the election, you referenced elbows up and saying that was going to be the strategy you take with the Americans. You also consistently said that Donald Trump was trying to break us so he could own us. Your new argument today is that Canadians should accept basically the best of a bad deal. What's been the change?
Wait. I reject the premise of that question. Okay, we have the best deal. Look at the numbers. Our tariff is 5.5%. We have 85% of our goods are free trade. It's not what we used to have. Nobody has a deal with the United States that they used to have. Nobody does. They have fundamentally changed. It's their right. We respect it. They have fundamentally changed.
Well, Mr. Carney, calm down. There's no reason to be yelling at the reporter. He's only pointing out the truth. You did run up and down this country talking about existential threat and trade war, and we weren't going to back down and all those kinds of things. Now you're doing a complete reversal on that position, and you are trying to cover your embarrassment. You should be embarrassed. You should be embarrassed because you overreacted. You said a bunch of stuff that was designed to entice people to vote for you, and then you completely failed to come through on any of it. So I get that you're embarrassed. I get that affects you. You saw it. You saw it. Oh, look at the numbers. Look at the numbers. Well, I have been looking at the numbers, as a matter of fact. I've seen the numbers of our debt shoot up through the roof. I've seen prices for homes shoot up through the roof. Prices for food shoot up through the roof. Amount of unemployment, people unemployed shoot up through the roof. The amount of people that don't even have that safety net anymore and gone on to social services shoot up through the roof. I've seen the amount of people being brought into the country with no place to live and no jobs to give them shoot up through the roof. I mean, there's a lot of numbers that I've been looking at, and a lot of numbers we're paying attention to. I've seen you promise that we were going to be able to sell our steel to Europe. They're not interested in buying our stuff. And yet still, we have had Melanie Joly flying to Europe. You're going to Germany next week. I'm not 100% sure how that helps Canada. You could have been in the House of Commons working on these problems. You could have been in the House of Commons repealing many of the bills that are in the way for the development. We need development in this country, like I have been saying from the very beginning, because we have to stop allowing the world to treat us like a giant piggy bank. We have to stop letting the world come in here, take our natural resources, and take the money generated from those natural resources back to their own countries. And that's exactly the philosophy that Trump has come to the table with. Now you're saying that it's Trump's right. Now you're saying it's his right to change their position, and you respect that. Not, oh, we're gonna, it's all a war and he's attacking us and blah, 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 blah. No, now it's, well, they have the right and, we respect that. And I agree with you. They do have the right, and that's their position. What I don't agree with is the fact that you've taken 6 months to arrive at that comprehension. I further don't agree with the idea that you have so many laws in place that we can't get our own development up and running. Unlike Mr. Trump, who's also exercising his right to repeal a bunch of international laws and to change the fundamental direction of development of industry in his nation. And that's what you were elected for, right? You're supposed to be Mr. Math Wizard, though having read some of your content, well, I read your book, I'm not completely convinced and seen some of the history of your career. I'm not convinced that you're a math wizard at all. I believe that you're just a corporate raider, which, it's not that, it doesn't take much skill to do. Anyway, I digress. It's elbows down, Mr. Carney, and the best thing that you can do to save your reputation is to admit that Donald Trump defeated you, tender your resignation, allow Canadians to put somebody in the office that is going to be able to develop our industries for Canadians. We have so many countries coming in here and just pillaging all of our natural resources and taking them back to their country and making a lot of money. China, for example, is a great example of it. There are other nations that I'll do a separate video on that have control of our LNG, that have control of all of our mining rights. It's preposterous. Which, of course, is the problem that Canadians should have been talking about from the very beginning, that our industry is not developed like Donald Trump is trying to do down in the United States of America. Our industry is not developed. Our processes and our resources are going to other countries, making other countries rich, while our own people become poorer and poorer every single solitary day, while our government tries to cram us into high density because we are left with no other choices, where they make laws against allowing us to build things, where they bribe municipal governments to ensure that they only build apartment buildings. This is not a standard of living that we should be shooting for. The fact that Donald Trump's America is booming with the economy should show you a very simple playbook onto how these things actually work. Of course, the ideology has to get out of the way, right? We have a government that is ideologically driven. It's almost a theocracy that we live in, because they have this idea in their mind of how we should all be living. They're not listening to what we want from them. They're trying to preach and dictate to us. So they run all this legislation, 4 or 5 pieces of legislation to stop. I mean, so much development that they have gone so far as to say, well, you're not allowed to sail an oil tanker off the coast of British Columbia. Now, you can sail a canning ship into the Grand Banks of Newfoundland, scoop up all that fish. And by canning ship, what I mean is you scoop up the fish and then they process it, they can it, they get it on pallets, they got labels on it, and the second they get back to port, they offload it as ready to go right into the store. Those things are huge. They have no problem letting the Europeans come in and scoop up all that fish, no trouble at all. But to put oil tankers off the coast of British Columbia, where we would be selling into the Chinese or Korean or Japanese or Indian or so many markets that are all desperate for the LNG, that are all desperate for the fossil fuels that we possess. Well, no, you can't have that, because they're ideologically driven, you understand. They're not interested in what's best for you. They're only interested in trying to make it what's best for them. See, by having you crammed into tiny little cubicles, by having you broken and not doing well and not having your own space, it benefits them. By having troubles that stay the same, that never alter, that never change, politicians do better. But we are in some real problems right now in this country. The lack of the Liberal government's actions have stirred up separation in both Alberta and Quebec. The economy is tanking. The strength of our dollar is dropping. We've lost an entire summer. All of the men under 25, they're out of work. The amount of men that are being laid off in the auto and steel sectors are growing with every passing day. We don't have time for ideology, unless you feel like that's the kind of government that you want hardship and you want poverty and you want to live like you see images when you look at these horrible situations in other countries. I don't believe that people come to this country escaping other countries or leaving their places of birth because they want to come to poverty. So let's consider the idea that the philosophies and the policies are what we need to alter. The best thing that Mark Carney can do right now is resign and get out of the way, trigger an election, and let the country get up and running with an industry in its mind. Pierre Poilievre might not be perfect, but he does understand how to make money. He does understand what's needed to solve these problems. And if you out there telling yourself that for some reason you think that you have to hold on to the voting for the far left because you also are ideologically driven, then I guess there's no sense in me talking to you about the situation. However, if you are out there just trying to convince yourself that you need to do the right thing, well, I would recommend that you begin to support the Conservative Party, because making money is going to be the one universal language that ties this country together. There's no other one that's going to pull everybody from every walk of life together. It doesn't matter what flag you fly. It doesn't matter how you identify. The one thing we all have in common is the desire to live a decent life. And the single largest barrier we have to that decent life right now is called the Liberal Party. All right, I'm going to wrap. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next time.